What a match at the Allianz Arena. Villarreal and Bayern Munich playing to a 1-1 draw. Lewandowski with a goal in the 52nd minute. That pulled things level on aggregate. But Samu Chukwueze in the 88th minute with a goal that puts Villarreal into the last four of the Champions League. Joining us now from Munich with more is Mark Ogden. Mark, what happened to Bayern in this match?
I said, well, it was so predictable from the off. I think, give credit to Villarreal and Unai Emery. He brought a fantastic game plan. It was deep defence, banks of 9 and 10 players. At one point, they had 11 players behind the 18-yard line. They were set in to defend. But Bayern just couldn't do anything about it. Bayern haven't really got any flair, any creativity, any guile. I was watching this tonight thinking the one player they could have done with tonight is Thiago Alcantara, who they let go, 2 years ago to Liverpool. They just lack that cutting edge in the midfield. So they're not great to watch, Villarreal, by any means, but they've done a job and they're in the semi-finals.
Yeah, Ale, this wasn't a fluke, was it?
No, it wasn't. Given what we have seen from Bayern Munich, and not necessarily just over the two games against Villarreal, but also their performances in Bundesliga. They barely got past Oxford last weekend, and it was all difficult. Everything just seems to be predictable and slow for Bayern Munich, and we keep saying they're going to get it right. Because of the pedigree, because of the history, because it is Bayern Munich, they're going to be fine. And that's probably what they were thinking themselves. But then they run into a team like Villarreal that are very stubborn, defensively well set up, well organized. But when there were opportunities for them to go on the counter, they were willing to then add those numbers in the attack. And they knew those were their chances and their opportunities to then find Danjuma in behind, or to find Chukwueze, or the movement of the ball by Gerard Moreno. And those counterattacks for Villarreal almost looked more dangerous. Even if they didn't have the ball, they looked more dangerous than Bayern Munich with all the possession. You almost felt like the counterattacks for Villarreal were more likely to end up in a goal than any of the long periods of possession that Bayern Munich had over the course of not only 90 minutes, but over the course of 180 minutes.
Mark, Lewandowski gets a goal tonight for Bayern, but really Lewandowski, Müller, like all the stars had quiet evenings. What happened?
Yeah, Müller, Lewandowski, Zane, Coman. Like I say, there was just no creativity in the midfield, but because Villarreal defended so deep, it is really hard to play against a team that defends so deep. And I think 24 of Bayern's goals in the Champions League have come from inside the penalty area. Well, Villarreal had 8 or 9 men in the penalty area, so it's so difficult for Bayern to do what they do. But like I say, I think Bayern maybe had a bit of arrogance about this game. They thought they were going to win it quite easily second leg. It just never happened. I just think Villarreal are always underestimated. Juventus did it, Man United did it in the Europa League final last year. Bayern have done it. Now, I expect Liverpool to face Villarreal in the semi-finals. I don't think Liverpool will underestimate them, but they'll still be a tough nut for Liverpool to crack.
Yeah, about the points that Julian Nagelsmann brought up, I think he said, won't happen again, referencing the first leg. Effectively, Mark, promising that his team would deliver. They clearly overlooked Villarreal in that manner, didn't they?
Yeah, absolutely. But when you're playing against a team that defends so deeply, you have to be able to create and unlock and pick a hole. And they just didn't do that. Bayern were trying to sledgehammer them really with the 5 forwards. It was all so predictable, straight to the middle, no flair, no attempt to kind of draw them out. The tactics are quite naive by Bayern, I thought. And I think Ali's right. I think, Villarreal had the better counter-attack. They looked more purposeful in the counter-attack, looked sharper. They looked like every time they broke, they could score. I mean, they probably had 3 really good chances, Villarreal. In the first half, Danjuma should have scored as well. So, for me, although they're not very good to watch and they will frustrate people, Villarreal had the perfect game plan and they executed it. And what a way to have a counter-punch. 88th minute goal to kill the game. Fantastic.
Yeah, Bayern Munich then 1-1, the final score against Villarreal. A lot of players on Bayern Munich, maybe Ale today, looked frustrated, none more so than Lewandowski.
Yeah, because he is a guy that is going to depend on that service. And if it is a crowded area and the ball is not moving quickly enough, then he can't find the space. And so then the solution became, well, let's put more people around him, more attacking players around him, which then brings more defending players around him. And those spaces were always going to be difficult for Bayern Munich. But guess what? This is not a surprise to anybody that Villarreal was going to go into Munich and they were going to defend. You had a whole week to then, hey, how are we going to go about this? And if this is the best solution that you can put forth, if you're Julian Nagelsmann, you're supposed to be a genius, right? Young genius coach in the world. Okay, this is the best solution that you have. Hey, let's just crowd the box and let's just jam it down the middle and hope that something happens and breaks our way. Well, I could have done that from over here. Mark could have done that as well. I think there's a lack of attitude that is surprising from Bayern Munich's perspective. And it wasn't only until they got into real trouble that they began to oh man, hey, where's the intensity? Where's the urgency? Well, it's too late now, because then Villarreal had a sense of belief. They had a plan in place. They were executing their game plan, whereas Bayern Munich was just trying to problem solve on the run without any real sort of sequence of play that you say, hey, that looks like something they've worked on. It was almost by accident that they're trying to get their chances. A rebound here, a bounce there, a cross here. Thomas Müller gets a great opportunity, and that's really the one chance that you say, man, he puts that away, it's a different match. But other than that, it was all of this meaningless possession, and Unai Emery would suggest, you know what, that's exactly what we're expecting, that's exactly what we wanted, we executed our game plan, we did our job, Bayern Munich did not.
Mark, we're looking at Unai Emery's managerial record in the Champions League. It's awfully impressive. You think he's ready for a bigger job than Villarreal? Has he proven it here?
Well, he's had bigger jobs. He's had Arsenal and PSG, and we know that he didn't quite succeed at those clubs. So maybe he's a guy that succeeds at clubs that, have to punch above the weight, the underdogs maybe, because Sevilla are a bit of an underdog as well. And I think, Emery, I think he's due a bigger job than Villarreal, but I don't think he's going to get a kind of elite club like a Barcelona, Real Madrid. But, you can't knock his record. It's 4 Europa Leagues. And I think, it's going to be very tough against Liverpool. But the way that Emery sets his teams up, he's got 180 minutes against Liverpool to get to a Champions League final. It'll be a remarkable story. Let's be honest, Villarreal wouldn't have been in the competition this season, but for winning the Europa League last season, and they won it with the goalkeeper missing a penalty. That is how kind of tenuous their Champions League journey's been. But look what they've done since they got there: beating Juventus, beating Bayern Munich, now Liverpool. I think a lot of the neutrals will be hoping that Villarreal do it.
Ale, how do we explain the fact that this team is 7th in La Liga and yet they're in the last 4 of the Champions League? Is it down to Emery? Does he get all the credit?
Well, no. I think that there is something about Unai Emery knockout competition, that he's able to set up a matchup over 180 minutes and a game plan that is very clear for his players to be able to execute. They don't quite do the same things in La Liga. And they had a very slow start to the season. They've been playing better as of late. But having said that, they lost to Levante, who's destined to relegation, just last week. So it's difficult to kind of make sense of Villarreal. They're 26 points behind Real Madrid, 7th in La Liga. So it's not a coincidence when you're 26 points behind. That means that at times during this season, they've been very poor. But when they can focus on just one task and a couple of games, 180 minutes, I think Unai Emery does that very well, and his players have been able to execute very well.
Other side of the coin, where does Bayern go from here? What's left for them? 9-point lead in the Bundesliga, but obviously the Champions League is where they wanted to be successful.
It's an underwhelming season for Bayern Munich. Okay, they win Bundesliga, nobody's going to say, oh, well, that was a horrible season. But to some degree, if indeed your standard is Champions League, to go out in the quarterfinals is not so bad. To go out to Villarreal, because of the context that we just gave you about Villarreal and the information that I just provided, then on that context, then it's an awful season from the perspective of Bayern Munich, because their standard is higher than that. This is an embarrassing loss for Bayern Munich. The fact that they're not able to advance past Villarreal is going to send a lot of messages, and a lot of strong messages to a lot of people in that club, and none of them are going to be positive.
Thank you very much for watching ESPN FC on YouTube. For more highlights, analysis and exclusive content, be sure to subscribe.